like to present Colin R. as our speaker.
I'm Colin. I'm an alcoholic. This has got this little cabaret thing going here. Where's the shuffleboard? You know, and some drunk sleeping on the wax. That's. Yeah. Is there anyone here for the very first meeting ever? And anybody here in the first 30 days? Okay. Oh, Daniel. Glad you're here, Daniel. That's that. I call those first 30 days heroic. Those are the strange things going on. In hindsight, I know what's happening inside a person now. Back then, I thought I was just gliding into this place where they might teach me how to drink properly, make a few adjustments. I was mixing it with the wrong stuff. Teach me how to be a gentleman, because I was literally an animal when I got here. But the things that happen to a person when they enter the presence of the power. I'll get back to my history before I get to the space here. But before you enter the presence of the power, it's a transformation, a total transformation in consciousness and being, something that man can't do. There's no model that can achieve that. Only God will do that. And it begins at a really deep level where, without your permission, at the cellular level, if you walk into your first meeting, you're in. No one can kick you out of AA. You're in. Everyone here's playing field's leveled. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how long you've been drinking, or how badly you drink. But as soon as you enter that thing, a thing happens. It's, Bob, can I say sperm here? Okay. But I've used that before, you know. The analogy is perfect. You see this time-lapse photography of a sperm, you know, the lucky one that got through, and it penetrates the egg, and immediately it's different. At first, it's different. It turns into 2 cells, and then it goes exponentially until it's trillions of cells, and there's this perfect human being. The cells distributed exactly where it has to go, and each one minding its own business, but it's all interconnected, like us. We're all interconnected, one big thing, doing one big thing. But meanwhile, you're going to meetings. You probably got some juice still in your system. You're still in the old patterns that worked to do the stuff that brought you here. And you're nervous as hell, and you wonder why you're still coming back. And trust me, you're not coming back. You're not coming back yourself. Something's bringing you back every day, and that's what's happened to everyone in this room for a long time. Some people have been here for a long, long time. I've been here for quite a while. But a little history. I'm from Canada. I grew up in Canada. I was born in 1934, which is right in the Depression. My parents lived in southern Alberta, and when I came along, they lived in a British American oil field shack. That we were in real poverty. I didn't know any poverty. I was a happy kid for a long time, until I made the turn. You know, whatever happens then, boy. But I left something behind back there, that I've been trying to find ever since. And this program will give you enough of that back that you can press on for the rest of your life. But they lived in the shack. When I came along, there's no hospital, or it wasn't even a 7-Eleven equivalent there. So they had to go across the border into Sweetgrass, Montana. So I became, of Canadian parents, an American citizen. Came back a couple of days later, but that one first day of my life is the most important, one of the most important things that ever happened, besides getting born, because it has made all the difference. But moving fast forward, I grew up principally in Vancouver, the west end of Vancouver, which is the perfect place in the world to earn a seat in one of these rooms. It was one thing that I thought about today. You know, my parents were in the middle of the Depression when I came along, and people in the Depression thought it would last forever. And there was no, Social Security. There was no, nothing back then. If you're hungry, if you were broke, you were hungry and you were broke. There's nothing that came along that took care of you. They thought that would last forever. Canada went into the war in 1939, right in the middle of the Depression. They thought that would last forever. So there was this atmosphere of uncertainty in my home from day one. Fear, I didn't understand what that was, but I think when they say that we have to get down to causes and conditions, these conditions go way back. It's not something that happened to you yesterday or in your child. They go way back. There are professional people here who will take you back to your childhood and say, look at this. This is where the wound took place. And everybody you're mad at right now is, is just a surrogate to the guy right here with whom you want to choke to the ground. But children like us, when we come in here, we don't know what's happening without our permission, but the stuff is being embedded in consciousness. It's the damnedest thing how stuff's happening, most of it, without our permission and light. And we're left sort of adrift, and it's one of the facts of suffering, as the book talks about, the facts of suffering, to live on the planet in a human body. Living in a human body is suffering, Christ. But it took for me to get up in the morning and get here, forget about it. Fuck it, I'd rather not do it. But that was in bed, but there was this sense we all had as teenagers, and we sort of raised ourselves because our parents were doing everything they could just to keep their head above water in the 40s and during the war. But everyone had gone through the Depression and the war were heroes. They were the older guys. And we were really virtually pissants. We were teenagers, and recorded, like I say in this book I wrote, we were left to pretend, to be something, to be a hero, live in a world of fantasy. And I've stayed there most of my life, pretending to be something I'm not, because I was unsatisfied with who I was. It's the strangest thing about people that come to these rooms here, that they want to be someone they're not, with a dissatisfaction who it is they are. These 12 steps will bring you back to who you are. And it's not a happy trip all the time. Simple but not easy, a price had to be paid. And bringing it forward from there, but it was, in the West End, we weren't criminals. We didn't kill, we weren't killers or real robbers. We worked the streets. We tried to be hustlers. In Vancouver, it was a great place for that because it was the third largest city in Canada. There was a lot of money in there running the streets, but we didn't have it. And we drank all the time. If you could walk into a pub, they let you into a pub. It was way, way back then when, in the 40s, when everything was wide open. They put a lot of restrictions on things now, but it was a happy and an easy time to live. Christ, it was before television. Yeah. A whole lot of distractions we didn't have, Something will make you puke is that, when I was a kid, you could send off for a crystal set, which is a little tin thing with a crystal in it and had a little needle in it, and they give you a set of headphones, and if you really wriggle it right, you can hear a radio. That was early Canadian porn, So it's kind of and I don't know if it's improved or not since then, but it's become more sophisticated. Can we say that? Let's be. But it was sort of like we raised ourselves, like what I'm saying, and it was great. We just ran in a pack, but drank constantly. They say that beer is another coil in the Canadian DNA. If you drank, you just drank all the time. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought that's what you did. Well, I had no guidance, no structure, no identity. Those are the three things I know I didn't have. Now, in hindsight, it's funny, I didn't know any of that shit then, but this program will give you an education. It'll teach you to own your life and to fall in love with it, to say it wasn't all that bad. It was what God has given me to do to bring me where I am in order that I might do what I've been given to do. And we don't find what we've been given to do until we get here. See, people here in this room are dedicated to family, jobs and the rest of it. And listen, I'm the only one talking. Attention, and a commitment. It's amazing things for people who should really be choking one another to the floor right now. But it's not happening. In this very room, I'm sure at some time it did. Next door, years ago, it used to be kind of rowdy. But, I'm the only one that's talking in here. It's not because I'm important, because it's something you want and you feel the connection. Interesting thing is that when you come here, you see strangers and they tell you, our code is to love and to tolerate one another. So we're charged to love one another, and I wondered what that was until I realized that, say if I were Samantha's age right now and I listened to a 90-year-old guy, I'd probably think of something else or want to do something else if she wasn't in AA. In AA, there's something that brings us together, and that's where we all come together at the singularity of our common suffering, where we all are one. That's where the playing field is leveled, and that's the definition of love. You don't have to go any further than that. You don't have to come up with any more sophisticated definition of love than that. That's it. And you don't have to like one another. In fact, I guarantee if this room was shut down, sealed for a week, we'd find a reason to hate everyone in the room. And it tells us in the book, in the literature, we don't have to hate one another. We can't stand to hate deeply, but it tells us we probably will. The beautiful thing about the book, it tells us who we are. It tells you you're going to be selfish, dishonest, resentful, and afraid. And selfishness, self-centered is the root of our problem. We're going to be undisciplined, full flight from reality. It tells us this is who you are, and the damnedest things we come here and we're distressed that that's who we are. And why can't we be something else? And no, the eventual thing is, like I told Bob, just be who you are. Now, there's some danger in that. That doesn't give you license to go out and rape, pillage, and burn and do the things that brought you here. There are guidelines, and that's what the 12 steps are all about, and the 12 traditions. Now, it's taken me a while to learn any of that. Now, when I left Canada, I left because I could not face responsibility. I'd done something that got me in trouble, and I had to leave town. I had to leave Canada. And strange thing, there's a couple of things that have happened in my life that just happened to me. I looked up and I say, I probably wouldn't have done that, but this happened to me. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Something I wouldn't do today. And so I thought, well, I'll be around for 4 years, and then I'll go back to Canada and, slither in there where they won't see I'm coming back, and I'll work in logging camps or the railway, these jobs I had there. And the kids in summertime in Vancouver worked in logging camps and fishing boats and that. There was a lot of work, and it was great. You grew up. If you needed money, you had to work, because my folks didn't have money. And I'm grateful for that, because I learned this work ethic from that. I've always had a job as a result of that. But I thought I'd be in the Marine Corps for 4 years. I thought, God, look what's happened in the last 4 years. God knows what will happen in 4 more. So, it was a long time, so I signed the thing, and I went in, and a strange thing happened. I entered this place. I knew nothing about the Marine Corps. I had no history on it at all. I'd seen a couple of movies, I guess, Gung Ho or something like that. I'd never seen a Marine uniform. It took me, I came in and I said I had no identity, no structure, no hope, no purpose. In 13 weeks, they gave me all 4 of those. It was embedded in me, and I locked in. The first day, I loved it. And I was into it. Of course, I'd lived with guys, basically, in the street. We slept wherever we went sometimes. I'd worked in logging camps. You piled up together there, too. And it was something about it. There's a tone to it. There's a tone to it that just made it hit my core. And there was an identity. It hit my true identity. And I'd never known what that was. I've been looking for an identity ever since I grew up. These heroes around me, my parents, Everybody had been a soldier, had gone through the Depression. We were just, zeros, and we were looking for something to do some way. I lived in a world of fantasy. I was Captain Marvel one day. I was out there, some heroic person. Once I was Madame Curry, shit. I mean, I find anything. I'll do anything but who I am. Okay, I was willing to do that. So I was in boot camp. Amazing thing happened. I was a high school dropout. Dropped out in my last year to go to work, and they gave me this GED test, and for a high school dropout in Canada, I got a 2-year college equivalency in America. And I was surprised of that. And also there's this aptitude test they gave you, and they say, you qualify for flight school. And I've been on an airplane once. I got a nosebleed, an earache, and sick. And I said, would you like to fly airplanes? I said, yeah, New identity, boy, I says, yeah, I'll fly airplanes. What a joke, what a total joke. Well, the great irony is I got there, the minute I got in an airplane, I was at home. And I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps in fighter planes. Most of them fighter planes with a few staff tours. One of them out here in Memphis, Millington for 3 years, back in 67 to 70. But I just ate it up. I could fly, and they loved me because I could fly, but I would do nothing else but drink and fly. They said, it's fine, let the animal do what he's going to do, but it's fine because he's always on the schedule, he'll fly anything. And I could do that, but I would not do my collateral duty. I would show up for a flight, but nothing else. And I was at least amusing, which is kind of a really pitiful identity to have anyway, if that's all you are. But that's basically what it was for the first 10 years I was in the Marine Corps. The first 10 years, oh God, it was, we were, 1961 was the drunkest I've ever been on day-to-day consecutively for an entire year drunk. And we were flying on about 3 different aircraft carriers, and everywhere I went, I was just drunk all the time. And I could fly well when I didn't eat. I just didn't think about it because I didn't give a shit. I didn't think about it because I didn't give a shit. And so in 1961, we were in Atsugi, Japan, alternately on aircraft carriers because we're in the South China Sea during the Laotian crisis, which preceded the Vietnam event. I don't keep track of this. Bob will yell at me. Okay, I'm cool. But we stayed drunk. We were in garrison there, and we were just, I woke up one time. I was tied to the top of a Quonset hut in the middle of a typhoon. I was the village idiot. They just carried me around as sort of a pet. I broke a knee, or actually I separated my knee at a beer party. And for about 6 months of that time, I was just in a cast, wandering around. It probably saved my life, because if I'd flown during that period of time, I could have bought the farm, I'm sure. But there's this strange stuff that was happening around me. I was kind of a cartoon, a caricature of what it was all about. But I had made up my mind I was going to be a myth. I was going to make of myself this really heroic and theatrical and historic, entity that they talk about forever in the Marine Corps. And they did for a long time. But as I was doing this thing, some strange thing happened. At a certain point, midway through those first 10 years in the Marine Corps while I was flying, I was just happy-go-lucky, just cheerful of people. I like people, they like me. I had a following, I was trending. About somewhere along the line, about 5 years into this period, I began to lose something. Now, I could still fly airplanes, but I began to lose things. Incidentally, I got married. Incidentally, I had 2 kids. Got to forget them right away, because I lost them almost right away. As soon But that occurred very, very close to the end. But there began to lose something, and it was, I still had my mind to a certain degree, but I began to give less and less and less of a shit. Became apathetic. I no longer had that feeling when I flew. I could fly well, but I didn't have that feeling I had when you really like flying. And then gradually something else started going. And then one day, it was on the 1st of December 1964, I was a bachelor at the time. I was in a squadron in Kingsville, Texas. I was a flight instructor at the time at the Air Advanced Training Command. We were training guys just before they went into Vietnam. I was the air combat maneuvering boss of the whole thing, the squadron I was in. It was a great job. And it just didn't click. I was enjoying flying. I was doing the thing. But I had a girlfriend up in Corpus Christi, Texas. It would take about, an hour and a half and a six-pack of beer to get there. And I'd go up there and be with her on the weekend or sometimes during the week. But I remember this one weekend, I drove all the way up and almost got to her door. I turned around and drove back. I can't do that anymore. I could not be with people anymore. I could go to the bar and sort of I'd go through the drill. I had a drill. We all have patterns when we get here. I know how to do things because I got this drill. I worked it into my, muscle memory. But that was about it. But I'd gone to the club that night, and I'd gone through my formula. Everyone knows the formula they had to go to get them to that place where they wanted to be. That sense of ease and comfort, which comes with a few drinks. I think that's a joke. Say it comes with a few drinks. But I went through my formula, my drill, and nothing happened. And the more I drank, the less happened. And the more I went to this dark place, and I went back to my room. I lived in a one room in the bachelor officers' quarters with me, and I think I had a pet hamster that had run away and something, and I had a pet there or something. But that was it. I mean, my life had been reduced to that. And I looked in this mirror, and it was like a skull looking back at me, and it was weeping. And this is another thing that just sort of happened to me. I was talking about that I wouldn't have done. These words came out of me. I said, my God, what am I going to do? Now, that was on the 1st of December, 1964. And everything that's happened since then has been the answer to that prayer. Subjectively, good, bad, right or wrong, otherwise, no matter what standard we're living by, it has all been to purpose. My individual purpose, and I think global purpose, because we are all contributing to the great body of this one big thing doing one big thing. We have our own separate identities, but we are this central identity of man, and we are all part of that. Like the parts of the human body, the liver and the heart are all different. They have different cells. They don't get in anyone else's way, but they know what's going on. And it's all one organ, one organism. And that's what we are. I believe this connects us to that. Now, theoretically, I know it's a fact. I haven't embodied that in my spirit because I still behave like an alcoholic. I'm still a spoiled brat. I still have all these defects of character that they attribute to us. And I recognize it now, but when I got here, I didn't. I didn't recognize it because I'd set up this psychological apparatus that would ignore it, that would allow it license to be whatever it wanted to be. Well, this is the 1st of December, 1964, and within 15 minutes after I said that prayer, I'm in a phone booth with a dime. It was a dime back then. And I called this guy, and nobody answered. So I got out and went halfway down the hall, and I went back, because I remember in the phone book, which is that thick, it says, if no one answers, call the second number. And I called the second number. Now today, I'm too cool today to do that. It was something else working me along. I was on skids. And this guy answered, and I started to say, well, I wanted to, that thing when you get a first drunk call. Well, I didn't. He says, look, I want you at this restaurant in 10 minutes. I said, I don't know if I can get there. He says, you can get anywhere in Kingsville in 5 minutes. So I got all dressed up. I was an officer of Marines. I was a captain by then. And I had coat tie, which you did when you went to the commander's home with your card, put it in a little tin tray. And so I showed at the restaurant, the same restaurant, just about a week before, I punched out the jukebox. I got this scar on my knuckle here. Over 20 years in the Marine Corps, 2 combat tours, and I don't care what, and that's the only scar I got. And my whole body from the whole experience was. And the waitress came over and she saw who I was with and she gave it a nod. Otherwise, I was going to get 76 there. Well, this guy, he took me to this place, a garage way down in Kingsville, Texas. There were people off the King Ranch, laborers. God, it was just the salt of the earth people, dressed, in whatever they woke up in. Cooked off the King Ranch. And they were, and there was only about 7 or 8 of them. If I'd walked into a cathedral, it wouldn't have happened for me. And if I'd walked into, something that had anything more, any more bells and whistles that it had, and it did not have a single bell or a single whistle to it, it was just plainly what it was. And boy, and they were just talking what's on their heart, saying what was going on. They talked about God. They talked about these 12 steps, whatever that was, the 12, whatever that was. And I didn't hear any of that. I just felt it. I was just wide open. Something had cut me open, and I was peeled and ready, and I just took it in. And I knew right away it was not about drinking, not about not drinking. One thing that helped, there's a lady there, and when she identified herself, she said, my name is Jackie, I'm a pillhead. That made sense to me, because I had sense that this was about the whole thing. And this thing that was on me when I wanted to stop drinking for the longest time. It's not like drinking that's on you. It is like something, a lead blanket, a 1,000-pound blanket on me that you can't get out of. I would do anything to get out of this thing. Now that's the attitude, a part of that I'd like to carry through the rest of my sobriety. But too early we get set out of the box. And I think we get to a level, where I did, where I think that maybe this is what sobriety is and it's not. I think it's still dealing with the substance, and the idea is I'm still dealing with the symptom and not the underlying conditions, the deeper set of whatever the thing is. And it's, since I've been in the program, I've had to deal with 4 major problems, I think, on the level of my alcoholism, from which I've been given a daily reprieve. I'm still on house arrest in some of these areas here. I brought my keeper with me. Wonder Wife, I met her 41 years ago when I first saw her. I was a predator. I was cruising meetings. I was just really worthless. I was really not a class act. I saw her and I almost got sick when I first saw her. And I avoided her for 3 years. And after 3 years, and I think it was the March the 15th, 1986, we hooked up and we've been together ever since. Alice has got nearly 42 years of sobriety. So we have, between the two of us, we got over 100 years of sobriety, and we're still idiots. Bumping into one another in the house, wondering what's going on, and every now and then we'll pop up with a mutual 10th step and laugh about it. This is, what bullshit is that, But that's it's good to wake up in the morning with someone with whom you can take a 10th step. Whew. I'm not going to get into that because it's just, I'm so overpaid in every area of my life, I cannot believe it. But when I came here, I started out at 0, I really did. I had a job. I had a real piece of shit car. But that was it. I'd run my family off. I'd run girlfriend off, and I was thrilled to death. My wife and kids left. I was thrilled to death because I knew I could not do that. I just could not do it, and they were just embarrassing me. So I was set adrift on this deal that I was encountered with this spiritual thing that had happened to me. I came back and I walked down the hall of the BOQ when I came back from that meeting, and I knew in my deepest soul that I would not drink again, and I haven't. I haven't had a drink since that meeting. That'll be in less than a month, it'll be 60 years. You know, that's too long. Because you can forget that. You can forget what brought you here. I need a guy like Daniel to come in and remind me, you know, what brought me here. I need that. That's what we need one another. You know, the newest people in the room are carrying the mail. If they're bringing you back, you know, I say that the further you get in there, the longer you've been in the room, or in AA, the further you sit at the back of the room. And let these new folks come in and bring the new mail, the new data. I'm totally out of touch. Unless I come here, you know, these people keep me in touch. I say these people, we keep one another in touch. This is the safest place on the planet right now. No outside issues. We come in here, we don't worry about what we did, our job, or the rest of it. We come in here and something happens. Or there's this common thread that comes through it, or people would ordinarily not mix. And that's where God comes to meet us. God comes to meet us at that place where we just ordinarily not mix, and then something happens. You might not think it's happening. In fact, I still don't know it's happening, but it is happening. I have to trust. The one thing you're asked to do here is believe, is to trust, because something's happening way beyond my understanding. I cannot cognitively know what's going on. I can't put it on paper, and I can't read it. If I read it, I could take it in, possibly, forget it. But this thing is happening at a really deep level, and I just have to trust it. Even after the 60 years, I still doubt. I still have this layer of cynicism that I had to go through when I got here. Went in the room, you know, the stuff I felt that first night, but I come in, I saw the protocol, and they go through the program, the ritual. I'd go to meetings, they'd read that literature. Is anyone here younger than 50, 60 in this room? See? Okay, you over there. All the time you've been living your life out there, pillaging, burning, ruining your life, and certainly destroying others. I've had to go to these goddamn meetings. See? So, but, you know, so it gets like that. You get to schlep to a meeting, says, oh, okay, who's going to read how it works? Does anyone want to be a sponsor? You know, what does it do? And you come there, you're in a really bad mood, you know, you're not feeling really good, too much sugar or whatever, and not enough sleep, way too much coffee. You know, if you start destroying your life from the very beginning, you're already just beginning to floss your teeth, you know. I think that's big. When a sponsee begins to floss their teeth, they're moving along. This is heavy-duty sobriety. So, but there's that, you know, you just begin to take care of yourself, and meanwhile, underground, while all this cynicism is going on, there's something happening whether you like it or not. A total transformation in consciousness and being. Over time and exposure to these 12 steps. Trust me, I don't do anything. I put myself in a position for the steps to do the work. And whatever your concept of God is, that's the dude that's doing it. It could be absolutely anything, but it's privately yours, and I would not let anyone mess with it. This is something that is strictly, sacred to the person, and anyone that crosses that line is in trouble. And that's the thing to go to, no matter what it is. Some people come here with a really solid religious background that hasn't cemented, and here it is, it just turns the thing one more rotation, and they're locked in. I didn't. I had none of that going. My mother was a mystic, and she just naturally was into the deal, but was not religious. She would go to church, but she'd talk this language with me. You know, she'd call them one day religion, science, philosophy, astrology. well, I'll be packaged into one package deal, and it'll be the same thing. People will be able to get it on their own terms. But I didn't understand it then, but I remember vividly what she'd say. But she loved me foolishly, which is fortunate in one way, but unfortunate in another. I'm alive because of that. But I could not live without that. I left home pretty early. My dad kicked me out of the house pretty early, which I'm really glad, because I had a hard time living with him, because I was sure he didn't like me. He was mentally ill. He had a very serious mental illness. He was an alcoholic, a rageaholic, scared the shit out of me. And I was terrified from the day I was born until today. That stuff's embedded in me. If you get a really deep wound that says that, core issues do not yield to manipulation, a part of that might just stay with you forever. That's this part of me that keeps looking around. When does this stuff go away? And the book, that's the reason they have a 10th step. It says we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When they crop up, we go to talk to God immediately, someone else, make amends. But this should continue for a lifetime. In the beginning, they say one day at a time, and say, oops, way up here, fast forward for a lifetime. We do this one day at a time for a lifetime. You're as far along as you could possibly be, you and Samantha, that you could possibly be in this moment. You could not be any further. I would not rush further ahead than where you are. If you do, you'll step into the darkness. If you step beyond your own light, you'll go into the darkness. Done it. Been there, done that. I'll fast forward from 1st of December 19. What year was it, Alan? But I was about to be kicked out of the Marine Corps for my behavior, some shit I pulled, and I had a flight violation pending, which is the kiss of death for a pilot. They're going to jerk my wings. I got orders right after I went to my first meeting, practically. My orders were to go to California to go to transitional flight training. And I thought I was going to lose my wings. What happened was the Marine Corps knew it was going on in Vietnam, and they needed, there's going to be a big slug of Marines going back into Vietnam in 85 and 86, and they needed really experienced pilots. And so they took the paperwork and put it in a waste paper basket. The guy at headquarters Marine Corps, the guy on the captain's aviator's desk knew me, and he just pitched all that stuff. He says, you need to go out there and get retrained. The retraining was they took fighter pilots and turned them into attack pilots. Instead of air combat maneuvering, we were dropping bombs, bombs, rockets, napalm, bullets, anything that you fall off an airplane to hurt people and destroy their things. So I went out to El Toro, California, which just happens to be about an hour and a half, 15 minutes, a half an hour from Laguna Beach. And as soon as I got there, I looked up AA, and that was real close. So I drove down there. I was on the base going through training, and we were going to be there for a little over a year because it's a pretty long, comprehensive training. And down to the Canyon Club of Laguna Beach, it was Mecca. This is where all of the early players had arrived. Chuck Chamberlain was there, Clancy was hanging out there, a lot of people from the motion business, picture business, and there were a lot of alcoholics in AA from that area. But it was just the font of information. It was amazing. And so I picked up the vibe and listened to these guys and watched them. These were early players. I mean, I was there with, it was only 30 years after AA had been founded. And heck, I was there when, I think it was Chuck Chamberlain's 20th AA birthday. We thought, God, 20 years, what the God, how's that happen? So it was back kind of then. And these guys had a sort of a streamlined express version of the program. They wanted to get you into it and get you into it. And then, you were given commitments, and you were on board with this, and you into the steps, the discussion meetings all the time. I went to all of that stuff, but right away I got the language, I got the drill, what it is you do, how you're supposed to look. And so they said, that the selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear, these are the, so I won't do that. Selfishness is self-centered, and this is a root bull. I don't do that. Resentment's the number one offender. Oh, shit, I won't do that. So I immediately stopped doing that. As a time when they're still discussing the absolutes, which came from the Oxford group, which was selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. No, that's the other one. That's the bad guy. Honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. That's the absolutes. And they're studying these. And they're going through the thing about how to be that, and I immediately became those. So I started doing the things you should do, and quit doing the things I did. And then they talked about a spiritual awakening, and I had one of those. Just like that. And so I became that person, this robot, I was bumping into walls and people looking at me. So there's a speaker meeting at the Canyon Club one afternoon. I was at this long table, and there's a speaker is talking. This woman across from me is writing a letter to her boyfriend in Chino. And she's down from Synanon. Synanon was this big drug rehab thing that started up in L.A. that went tits up after, excuse me, oh, sorry. Can you say tits, Bob?
Yeah, you're fine, go ahead.
Okay. But at any rate, she's writing, and I went after her, and I went to this guy at the Alano thing. We had an Alano thing there inside the clubhouse where their speaker was. And I went to this guy. That girl over there is writing a letter while someone's talking. The guy looked at me and said, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" And I did not have an answer. I had totally lost my identity in form, in process, in theater, what I thought I was supposed to look like, and that's when I became the long journey back to who I was. And you don't do that theoretically. You'll have to go back through everything it is that need to be changed and experience everything it is that you wanted to change about yourself. If you do it the way I've done it, or have had to do these things. I've had to experience everything that it is I thought was needed to go away and God would take away right away. He says, no, I want you back into that. You're going to experience every bit of that and feel it to the point where you are desperately to have God take it, and you can quit trying to take it away yourself. I say the damnedest thing, it's right simple as can be, we take these steps so God can do it. I just present myself so that God can do the work, yet I still try to do it myself. Got this warehouse full of how-to books, workshops, God, warrior weekends, holotropic breath work, shamans. I've had the tear in my psychic shield repaired twice. Seances, out-of-body experiences, everything you possibly do except this simple thing right here, the simplest thing in the world, and people have been out there, like yourself, everyone in this room has spent every dime they've had, destroyed their entire lives, ruined friends and everything else, like they're looking for something, and they end up here. In this little place right here, this quiet little place, humble little place, where we all mixed together, not looking for anything more than what's here, and we don't know what it is. You can't tell me what it is. There's something within myself that I can't identify, I know is there, and that's why I say, from the beginning, there has to be we have to trust that it's happening, not look for any real evidence, and otherwise, the fact that you're no longer drinking. Anything more than that's gravy. So, thank you for asking me to talk.